There was once a time more simple, or perhaps I should say more simple-minded than this time, when the question of sexual identity was really no question at all. In public, at least, boys were boys, girls were girls, and that was the end of it. But as you've all undoubtedly noticed, over the last decade especially, we've come to realize that the question of and the search for sexual identity is a lot more complicated than blue pajamas for boy babies and pink nighties for little girl babies. Homosexuals are coming out of closets in record numbers in a continuing campaign to win civil rights in a country that, in colonial times, considered homosexuality to be a crime against nature, a crime so serious it was punishable by death. I have this quote from the Gay American History book. Now I'm quoting. From 1566 to 1966, American homosexuals were condemned to death by choking, burning, and drowning. They were executed, fired, framed, disinherited, declared insane, and driven to suicide. They've been witch hunted, and they've been court-martialed, end quote. Well, now, by the best available statistics, about 5% of the population is exclusively homosexual. 10% is primarily homosexual, and it's estimated that 1 out of every 3 men and at least 1 out of every 5 women has had at least one homosexual experience in their lives. So, as you can see, despite the fact that homosexual practices are still considered a crime in 32 of our 50 states, those are laws generally recognized only in the breach. Tonight, among other things, we'll be talking with the experts about whether or not homosexuality should be considered a normal, natural sexual preference. And we'll be talking also about the ongoing struggle for civil rights previously denied homosexuals. Now, there's another group searching for sexual identity, but they're in a much different situation than the members of the gay community. I'm speaking now about transsexuals, people whose sexual interest is also directed primarily at members of their same sex, but who, unlike homosexuals, are so in conflict with themselves that they decide physically to change their sexual orientation. And among our guests this evening will be one of the first and still the most publicized transsexual in the world, Miss Christine Jorgensen. But in the search for sexual identity, transsexualism is still a tiny minority. So I'd like to start this program talking about the life and times of some of America's approximately 25 million homosexuals. My first guest is an athlete who stunned the macho world of professional football when he publicly announced he was a homosexual, sick and tired of living in secrecy and shame. A 10-year veteran running back for the San Francisco 49ers, the Detroit Lions, the Washington Redskins, the New Orleans Saints, and even Vince Lombardi's fabled Green Bay Packers. Ladies and gentlemen, the first professional athlete to ever publicly admit to being a homosexual, please welcome David Kopay. Playing a little sports music there to make you feel at home.
Kickoff.
Why, David, did you decide to publicly admit to your homosexuality?
Well, there's so many reasons, a book full of reasons that we've done, spoke of. For me at the time, I was in the right place at the right time, and it was something that I could do to maybe get back and contribute to things. I had some doors closed to me in the coaching ranks, and maybe getting back involved in professional scouting, and I just realized too that it was very necessary.
Why necessary?
Why necessary? Well, to begin with, I can usually deal with things when people speak to me or speak to my face, you know. But when you're constantly people talking about you behind your back and lying lying about what my homosexuality meant to me and was, no way. I wasn't going to stand for that any longer. I think, you know, football kind of teaches you to roll with the punches, you know, and it teaches you to face up to things. I remember sitting there with Coach Lombardi in a Redskin locker room watching the films, and you make a mistake or whatever, it's right out there on the film, and you have to learn to deal with that, and that's has a lot to do with me speaking out and dealing with my sexual preference.
Are there, in your experience, many homosexuals in professional football?
Well, many. I don't know them all. I don't know all the heterosexual ball players either. Also, homosexuality has always been, you know, it's been so fearful. If people could just plug into the thought of how they feel or felt if someone calls them a latent homosexual, you know, or a faggot. That's kind of how I felt at the time. It was very, you know, oh my God, for a long time. Well, I don't worry about if someone calls me a latent heterosexual now. It's probably true.
You're a latent heterosexual.
I think so, yeah.
Terrific. Were you surprised by the reaction to your going public with your homosexuality?
Being perfectly honest, no. I kind of knew that there's so much repression and so much anxiety and really with what's going on in the country in the search for some truths, some honesty and some integrity. Just start looking at Watergate and what's going on there. I kind of felt that no, maybe everybody can plug into what I've been trying to say. I know so far our book has been reviewed as a book on sexual human freedom, and I think that's really what I'm speaking about. I can remember when I was just involved, or principally just involved with women, and as a heterosexual man, I can remember making love and intercourse or enjoying oral sex and wondering, gee, I wonder how she feels, you know? And it was a fantasy I even had then, even before I was dealing with my homosexual side or my homosexual preference.
Are you more at peace with yourself now?
Well, that's you know, people ask me that question. Right now, it's kind of exciting up here and being here. Yeah, I think much so, much more so. I also know, or at least I feel, much more loved, I guess, much more needed, much more wanted, because I'm getting letters from people around the country in numbers that you wouldn't believe. People, young kids too, I mean, you know, 15, 16 years old, that have never had any sexual experience. And then I've had people 29 years old, married and psychiatrists and whatnot, and all of a sudden they're relating to my sports background, they're relating to that macho background. They never ever related to maybe the kind of the image or the myths or the, you know, that you normally see in homosexuality. And therefore they're saying, hey, wait a minute, man, I'm plugging into where you are and what you've been through. And in effect, they're almost asking my permission to come out as such. It's kind of weird. I don't know.
What about the other ball players? How did they respond to it?
Well, when I go out, I usually go out probably most often to some of the bars in Georgetown when I'm there. I'm living in Washington, D.C. And run into ex-college ball players, ex-professional ball players. I run ex-teammates, Leonard Haas, Billy Kilmer, Dyron Talbert. And it's like, so what, you know? They've known about myself and others on the Washington Redskins and other ball players in the league over the years and how long they've been involved. I've had some all-pros say, gee, you know, it's kind of like an athlete, you know? An athlete, not all athletes reach their potential, you know? And I've had some married guys and whatnot say to me, gee, Dave, I think I got a lot of potential. I think that's kind of interesting.
Are they talking about the professional football field or the sexuality field?
Oh, I don't know. You know, well, I do know. I think they're talking about the sexuality side of themselves. You know, all this fuss about a same-sex lover. If people really consider that, you know, you love yourself. Anybody who's enjoyed masturbation knows what that's about too, you know.
I mean, we could argue that some people grow out of that, most people do, but...
Well, I think that, you know, there's an argument there. Maybe in terms of the numbers of men in this country who have had relationships or not even relationships, you know, sexual relationships don't always culminate in an orgasm. There's a lot of sexual relations, a lot of sexuality expressed in just, you know, that kind of stuff, and yay, man, how you doing?
Yeah, I understand that. Yeah. I definitely do. This is the book that David was talking about, called The David Kopay Story. It's on the bestseller list. I wonder now, David, how you feel about the irony. You will probably from this day or 6 months ago on for the rest of your life be better known as the homosexual who came out of the closet who happened to be a professional football player than as a running back who played in the Rose Bowl and for 10 years did a really workmanlike job on several professional football teams?
Well, I really enjoy playing football. I love the game. I think there's a lot that's healthy about it right now. I think there's a lot unhealthy about it. I think it's kind of interesting that, you know, they're always talking about football and its social redeeming values. Well, here's the National Football League has an opportunity to take a stand to really help a lot of people out, and they haven't mentioned a word. My book, for example, it's number 9 right now and be number 8 next week on the New York Times bestseller list. It has not been reviewed by the New York Times, nor has there had been one word about homosexuality in sports in the New York Times sports pages. What's going on there?
Yeah.
They want to eliminate 25 million people in this country?
Maybe you answer your own question by raising it. I want to thank you very much for coming on, man. I think that you're a brave guy, and I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you very much for having me. It's really been a pleasure.
Okay. Now, before I say goodbye to David, I pose this question. What do you as a parent do when your son brings home his lover, and his lover happens to be another man? Well, we'll find out how one family, the Ashworths, handled that right after this. Goodbye, and thank you very much. David Kopay.